For the last few years, Canada holds one of the leading places in the world in terms of indicators such as quality of life, ecology, culture and art, and education. Of course, this experience of the country is of great interest for Kazakhstan. Equal importance is attached to experience in the development of a number of priority sectors of the economy. First of all, it is of course agriculture. Canada is one of the largest agricultural countries in the world. The level of interaction between Kazakhstan and Canada is quite high, and economic cooperation is a key area of bilateral relations between the two countries. Kazakhstan is the largest economic partner for Canada in Central Asian region. Meanwhile, Canada is among the top 10 trading partners and major investors in Kazakhstan. The most active countries cooperate in the mining, oil and gas, metals and agricultural industries, as well as in the field of engineering, construction, education, science, health and tourism.
The relationship between Canada and Kazakhstan is almost 25 years old now. In fact, next year in 2017, we'll celebrate 25th anniversary of bilateral relations. And over that period, things have gotten deeper, certainly, but also broader. Still, I would say that the foundation of our cooperation is in areas where we share similar strengths: agriculture, mining and natural resources, and energy. And going back almost 25 years, we've had collaboration in those areas, particularly in mining. And that remains a source of strength for us. I think looking forward, and where we need to do a little bit more, is in diversifying and broadening the level of engagement. So we've got a tremendous core of companies and people who understand each other very well in the country. Government relations are very strong. We've had senior level exchanges and visits over the last decade in particular that have maintained those contacts. But I think I'd like to see us broaden it. And when I say broaden it, I mean parliamentary exchanges. The different branches of government and levels of society, we want to broaden that out a little bit. Second area where I want to focus a little more attention is on education and academic exchanges. We have a tremendous number of students who are going to school in Canada from Kazakhstan, about 450 last year, and that number is rising. But I think the institutional exchanges need to be built a little bit more. So to help things like that along, we're actually doing a mini conference on Canada-Kazakhstan, inviting scholars, students, professors, researchers to do some research and submit papers on how the Canada-Kazakhstan partnership could be further deepened. So we want to engage more members of society in this great endeavor of building a relationship.
Interstate relations between Kazakhstan and Canada have been established in 1992. For the development of beneficial cooperation with our country, the government of Canada immediately opened a diplomatic mission in Kazakhstan. By the way, the only one in the Central Asian region. The legal base of bilateral relations incorporates the Declaration of Principles of Relations within the two countries, trade agreement, a memorandum on the avoidance of double taxation and protection of investments.
My goals are, and the embassy goals are, of expanding, the level of cooperation, broadening it with more stakeholders. A business council is, the best friend of an ambassador because it brings in a whole constituency and an organization which is contributing to the same goal, but brings different strengths and points of view on that. So the establishment of the Canada-Kazakhstan Business Council this year is a real landmark because now we have a partner in the development of bilateral relations, somebody that we can rely on to consult and provide advice, and also to move together with governments in promoting more business exchanges and business opportunities. I always talk to people about mining and natural resources in particular because there's a perception that, well, it's a pretty basic industry. You're just digging things out of the ground, or in the case of oil and gas, you're piping it out of the ground. But there's actually a tremendous amount of technical innovation that goes into mining and extraction industries. And for Canada, that industry and innovation in it has been the kind of springboard for innovation into other areas. in other industries. So I think looking forward, we want to continue that development in those core areas and see growth into development of new technologies. It could be joint research projects and this sort of thing. You know, just to give you an example, there's one Canadian company here in the oil and gas sector, which we consider a traditional sector, which has developed technology for analyzing oil reservoirs under the water and under the rock that has never been used anywhere else on Earth. It's Canadian technology that's being used exclusively in Kazakhstan because of the particular situation here. So if I look at examples like that, it's really difficult to say, well, we've already developed our partnership in natural resources and there's nothing left to do. There's a tremendous amount to do. There's new efficiencies, new technologies that can come into play here. So that's really key. The other area, I think, is agriculture. And it's the same story. I mean, it's technologies change. Farmers, researchers, producers, they have to adapt to changing climates. They have to adapt to changing conditions to maximize production in the field. They also have to adapt to new markets. And so if I look at our two countries, I mean, Canada has benefited from being very close to a major market with a large population in the United States. And so naturally, a lot of our agricultural or natural resource products are exported there. Well, Kazakhstan has a similar advantage in having not one but at least two very large markets right on its doorstep in Russia and China, and not so far away in Europe.
Mr. Sean Style was appointed as Canadian ambassador to Kazakhstan, as well as part-time in Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan in 2014. His diplomatic career began in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Canada, working on security sector reform. The first country where he was sent as a diplomat was China. He later worked in Turkey, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Turkmenistan.
My average posting has been about 3 years, and my experience tells me that it takes 2 years to really develop your contacts, to understand where the real opportunities are, and to know where you can focus and to really have results. So it's in the 3rd year I find that you can become really productive and really affect change. But you do that knowing that you're going to hand off the baton to somebody else soon. And I think our goal is always to leave the relationship in a better situation than when it was when we arrived, to be always moving forward and developing new areas. And I think all ambassadors kind of bring their own talents, their own perspectives that allow the relationship, I hope, to move into new areas that it might not have otherwise moved. So for me personally, I think the emphasis now that I'm in my 3rd year is to broaden the relationship and leave it more sturdy and stable than it was before. You know, these are challenging times internationally. The world's going through changes and adjustments to the economy, certainly, but also the international political situation is changing and in some ways very fragile. So that can be a challenge for bilateral relationships as well as, you know, the broader international scene. And we want to make sure that our partnership with Kazakhstan is strong and built on a strong enough foundation that it can flourish even when times get tough. And for me, that means not just government-to-government relations, which we have very strong relationships with Kazakhstan, but broadening the constituents. And I mean those who are invested in the relationship. Because it's not just enough, it's not enough for just the ambassador or the embassies to be invested in the relationships. We take that for granted. We're here to promote it. But after we leave as ambassadors, we want to make sure that we've left more companies who are invested in the relationship, more students and researchers and academic institutions who are invested in the relationship, more members of parliament, as I suggested, who are invested in the relationship. So that when you see changes in the international arena, people know each other, first of all, and they feel like they've got something invested in the relationship. So they can say, listen, we won't turn our backs on each other.
Mr. Sean Style studied at the College of United World. He was engaged in volunteer work in Costa Rica and Malaysia. Then he returned to Canada and joined the Faculty of Anthropology at McGill University in Montreal. His scientific work on the social, economic, and environmental impact of the Dam Three Gorges was awarded a prize in China. As Canadian diplomat admits, he was always interested in international relations, and his coming to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was no accident.
I've figured out that I'm the first ambassador in our family. I'm the first ambassador from my hometown in Saskatchewan, and a lot of people would say, well, how does a kid from a small town in the middle of nowhere in Saskatchewan become an ambassador? And I think I had, you know, a lot of support and a lot of luck on the way to do that. I left Saskatchewan when I was about 16 to go to a United World College. I did, and I was one of two from the province of Saskatchewan who were selected to attend the college on a full scholarship. 200 different students from 70 different countries. I had 3 roommates, each of us from a different continent. It was a complete exercise in international education and peace and understanding, in every sense of the word. We had village meetings that decided everything on consensus. Should there be locks on the dorm room doors? It was decided by not a vote, but consensus through discussion. And I think that had a tremendous impact on me. And having had that experience, I think it was a natural fit for me to want to seek an international career. I became really interested in the UN, applied for some internships there. That didn't work out, but immediately after Pearson College, I did volunteer work, development work in Central America for a year. Then I became a teacher in Malaysia, teaching the International Baccalaureate and doing volunteer work with students at a school in Malaysia. And so it kind of became a natural fit. I was always having an international outlook. And then eventually when I got up to be doing my master's degree, kind of on a whim, I took the Foreign Service exam. It's hard to kind of give your career shape when you're changing every 3 years and you often don't know where you're going to end up. But if I had to define a kind of trajectory of my career, I kind of look at Silk Road. I started off with a long time in China, became a China expert in some ways. Then went off to the other end of the Silk Road in Istanbul, right at the convergence of Europe and Asia. And here I am now, ideally, I think, at the middle of the Silk Road, where you know the Central Asian region, Eurasia, Kazakhstan, is really the crossroads, historically and in the present, between Asia and Europe.
In his role as ambassador, Mr. Sean Style has a lot of plans, but rather targets. Canadian diplomat said that the purpose of life is like a lighthouse, without which it is easy to get lost in life. Therefore, it is very important, he says, to determine in which direction to move forward. To truly manage their own lives rather than go with the flow, you need to clearly define its value system.
I mean, for a typical day with me, it would probably define what it means to be successful. Yeah, doing everything, you know, getting it all done. It's not always possible, but you know, a typical day for me has a pretty good balance. And so success for me is setting the right results, maintaining a focus on them, and then achieving them at the end of the day. And in order to do that, you need to be creative. You need to let ideas flow. And if I don't make time each day to be thinking creatively, then that's not a good day for me. And it's not always easy because we're often driven by the requests of politics at home or politics here, incidents that arise, emergencies here and there. And it's really my job to remain focused on the bigger picture and make sure that the ship, even if it's bounced around by the waves, is heading in the right direction.